Have you ever thought that something as simple as an app on your phone could put your life in danger? It might sound like an exaggeration, but it's not. Today, you'll uncover 3 real stories of people whose lives were turned upside down by SnapMap, a feature meant to be harmless. But it became their worst nightmare. And the scariest part, what happened to them could happen to any of us. If you use social media without worrying about who has access to your location, this video might be the wake-up call that protects you from something terrible. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll see here might completely change how you use technology. Have you ever heard how curiosity can spiral into a dangerous obsession? Zach, an apparently ordinary young man, crossed that thin line completely. It all began with something anyone might do, using SnapMap to track the whereabouts of a classmate. What seemed harmless quickly turned dark. At first, he sent harmless photos, like snapshots of their school hallway. But imagine the growing tension when his messages began to include images of the victim's house taken from outside. The suffocating feeling of being watched is terrifying, but knowing someone is invading your privacy to this extent is pure horror. Over time, it escalated. Zach started appearing inside the victim's room. The photos he sent were no longer landscapes or vague locations. They were eerie shots of the room's interior, taken while the victim slept. The peak of terror came with disturbing messages like, "I like watching you sleep. What would you do if you woke up to discover someone had been just a few feet away from you during the night?" Stories like this make us rethink how technology can be an allure, a lurking nightmare. Have you ever felt like someone knew more about your routine than they should? Think about it. After weeks of mounting horror, the victim gathered enough digital evidence to report Zach to the authorities. But not all traumas end with an arrest. Although charged with juvenile trespassing, Zach vanished from school, leaving behind a cloud of mystery. To this day, no one knows where he went. Was he just a troubled boy, or was something darker guiding his actions? Funny how stories like these open doors to more questions, isn't it? By the way, did you lock your door today? Ah, Alex. If you thought Zach was already disturbing, wait until you hear this case. Alex had a dark reputation at school, always surrounded by tales of erratic behavior and intimidating attitudes. But none of that prepared his victim for what was to come. It all began with cryptic Snapchat messages, some accompanied by photos taken on the victim's property. Imagine opening a message and seeing a photo of your kitchen, taken from outside the window. That chilling realization that you're being watched is haunting. The most terrifying moment came when Alex escalated beyond virtual threats. One night, he appeared in the victim's backyard holding a knife. The scene was surreal, like something out of a horror movie, but it was terrifyingly real. The victim acted quickly, locked all doors and windows, called the police, and threatened to bring reinforcements. Luckily, Alex retreated into the darkness, leaving behind only the echo of his footsteps and a pounding heart. Have you ever wondered how you would react in such a situation? Locking yourself inside is natural instinct, but sometimes the simplest actions are the most effective. Despite the scare, the victim avoided the worst. But the psychological impact of knowing someone crossed your safety boundaries is devastating. In the days that followed, the entire neighborhood was on alert. Alex disappeared after the incident, but the questions lingered. Why would someone do this? Was it just a show of power, or were his intentions far more sinister? Stories like these make us realize how fear can seep into every corner of our lives, as though every shadow hides something more. Do walls really keep us safe? It's a troubling question, isn't it? Perhaps the answer is closer and less comforting than we'd like to think. Now, let me tell you something even more terrifying. When the threat isn't one specific person, but strangers you've never seen before. Imagine receiving friend requests on Snapchat from two seemingly harmless accounts, both featuring smiling women. That's exactly what happened to the victim in this story. Accepting the requests seemed harmless, but the calm didn't last long. Shortly after, the two accounts began using SnapMap to track the victim's location. Have you ever felt like someone knows more about you than they should? One night, while heading home, the victim noticed something unsettling. A car was following them, the occupants. The same falsely friendly faces from the accounts they had added. The vehicle stopped in front of their house, and for a few agonizing minutes, it just sat there, watching. The victim's father, noticing the situation, came outside armed with a flashlight and shouted at the car. The occupants fled, but the terror was far from over. The following night, they returned. This time, the same strangers drove slowly round the neighborhood, like predators stalking their prey. The family, overcome with fear, reinforced the locks, installed cameras, and alerted the police. Yet, the stalkers disappeared as mysteriously as they had appeared. But what were they after? Robbery, something more sinister. Have you ever considered that something like this could happen in your everyday life, through something as common as a phone app? This case raises a chilling question. How safe are we in our own homes? Technology, which connects us, also opens doors for others to enter our lives without permission. And perhaps the scariest part is the uncertainty. Did those people truly leave? Or are they still watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again? Now that you've heard these real and chilling stories, I ask, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you ignore the signs and keep exposing your location as if the world were harmless? Or will you take control of your digital security? The fear we feel when hearing cases like these isn't just a warning, it's a call to action. After all, how far are you willing to trust technology without protecting yourself from its threats? Reflect on your routine. Do you really check who's in your online friend circle? Do you think about what, where, and when you post? And above all, are you paying attention to the details that could save your life? Don't let fear paralyze you. Let it prepare you. Protect yourself, adjust your privacy settings, and, if necessary, go offline. Sometimes, disconnecting is the most effective way to prevent danger from connecting with you. If these stories impacted you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share it with your loved ones. Here, you'll find the tools to transform fear into strength and ignorance into knowledge. Because the only way to face the terror of the unknown is to illuminate it with information. So, what will you do now?